Hey guys, it's been a hot minute since I made a video, but I got this phone on a 2-for-1 deal and I thought it looked really cool, so I wanted to get one in, and I figured I can probably recover my initial investment. So I've got the NUU B30 Pro 5G right here, and if you've seen some of my other videos, I covered another new phone and I actually really liked it. The case is kind of similar here. This phone will retail for $299. And all in, it's a pretty decent phone. So let's just dive into the review and kind of take a look at what comes in the box. So we've got a 30-watt included charger, a USB C to C, and then what's cool about the new phones, and I guess a lot of phones in other countries, but not typically in the US, is they also come with a phone case, a little TPU case that fits on perfectly. Also, something that I probably won't be able to pick up in the camera is that this came with a pre-applied screen protector as well, which is awesome to see, just even more savings. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware. This phone has a MediaTek Dimensity 750, which is kind of like a successor to the Dimensity 700. It's definitely a little more powerful though. I've used some phones with the 700 and they kind of chug from time to time. So this one seems to have performed a lot better. This has 256 gigabytes of storage. It's got 12 gigabytes of RAM. It's got, as you saw, an under-screen fingerprint reader here, and it can use face unlock, which, well, I can't really show you right now because a camera's in front of my face, but it does work. The only thing really about the hardware that I don't like is that the haptics are super mushy. So when you're typing, it's kind of better if you just had it off entirely. Other than that, the general build is pretty good. It's all plastic, but it's a good looking plastic where it looks like it's got metal edges and then there's a plastic back, and it's a kind of nice brushed, kind of reflective, I don't even know what to call it, but it looks kind of iridescent a little bit. And then it's got these 3 cameras on the back that look kind of similar to the iPhones. Personally, I don't really like them. I think it looks kind of cheesy, too iPhone-like. I'd rather they have a third one here, or one of these cameras was smaller, just something to differentiate them. On the top, you've got a speaker, and on the bottom, you've got a speaker, and then you've got the USB-C port, and then the micro SD slot. Or sorry, not micro SD, the SIM card slot. This phone does not have micro SD. So let's talk a little bit about the software. It's a vanilla build of Android, so there's very few customizations, which is expected from something like NUU, which is just a complete budget brand where honestly they buy these phones from OEMs in China and then they just rebrand them with their logo. I've seen this phone from other device manufacturers that say they design it, but they don't. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It just means that they don't spend a lot of time building out software specifically for this phone. From what I found online, which I don't know exactly how accurate it is, but this will get 1 year of major OS updates. So it's going to get Android 14, which means this is already a little behind because it's currently running Android 13. And then it's going to get 2 years of software updates, or not software updates, sorry, security updates. So you'll be looking good for about 2 years on this phone, which is pretty decent, especially given its price. My only complaint with the software, and you might have seen it when I had this pulled down, is that the auto brightness will kind of rubber band. I don't know if that's because the pre-applied screen protector is reflecting some light into the camera or what, but I've noticed, like, if I'm reading in bed, it'll just get really bright, then dim, bright, dim, bright, dim, and back and forth, and that's a pretty janky experience. Other than that, though, the software is great. No bloatware, and everything, it feels really snappy. So let's talk a little bit about the screen and speakers. As you can see, the screen is super juicy looking. It's a 120 hertz OLED display, which I really love. If you've watched my channel, you know that one of the things that for me makes a phone really great is it having an OLED. I care a little less about the high refresh rate just because I don't do any sort of competitive gaming on a phone, and I feel like that's where you really get the value. But just moving around, you can totally see that it's very nice, and it boots up apps really quick as well. The other thing about the screen that might be worth noting for a lot of people is that it is curved. So if you're a fan of flat sides, you probably aren't going to be a huge fan of this. Personally, for me, I would show you, I've got my Pixel 6 Pro, which is what I'm filming this on. When I was using this phone, I kept confusing it for my Pixel because they feel very similar. I will say though that the Pixel 6 Pro has a less aggressive curve, so using the back gesture on this phone is actually significantly more difficult, and sometimes I have to do it multiple times before it actually pops up, especially when you get the case on there. But overall, it's not too bad. Also, I know I complained about the rubber banding of the brightness, but overall, I think the brightness is okay. From reviews that I've seen online, people are always complaining that it doesn't get very bright, but you know, for flagships a couple years ago, this is around that level. That being said, there's budget phones now that completely blow this out of the water. Well, depending on what your budget is for budget phone. I've got the Moto G Stylus, the 2024 one, and that phone absolutely blows out your corneas compared to this. So, yeah, overall though, I don't think it's a very valid complaint, especially given the price. It's definitely going to be brighter than things that have like an LCD and are a little cheaper. So I wouldn't complain too much. As for the speakers, it is a dual speaker setup and they get decently loud. The bottom one is definitely a little louder, but overall, I think they're okay. But they're definitely not flagship. If you're listening to something in the bathroom, then maybe the fan will be a little too loud and you'll be trying to hear. But overall, it's okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about the camera. On the front, we have a 32 megapixel selfie camera. And then on the back, we have a 108 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultrawide, and a 2 megapixel macro. Anyone who buys these budget phones knows that the ultrawide and the macro are pretty bad. But I'll get some samples up from all of the cameras and a little video, and then you can make up your mind for yourself. All right, next on the docket, we've got the battery. This comes with a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so decently sized. Kind of the standard now. Seems like most phones have 5,000 milliamp hours unless they're small or some sort of flipping or folding phone. But overall, the battery life's pretty good. I think I've been getting about 6 or 7 hours of screen on time with this phone, so can't complain there. And as you saw, it comes with this 30-watt fast charger, so if you do run it out, it recharges fairly quickly. It's not going to recharge nearly as fast as like a OnePlus or some of the Motorola's, but compared to my Pixel, it definitely charges up a little quicker. So good battery, would recommend. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about the performance in gaming. As I said before, this phone has the Dimensity 750 and it's got 12 gigs of RAM. So for most gaming, you're going to be able to run everything just fine. I did a test of Chains of Olympus on the PSPP emulator and it ran decently well. I was at 60 FPS at like 4x resolution, so really good for that. And that's impressive because usually the MediaTek chips have worse performance on emulation, but every game that I ran with this, it was able to just chew through. and given its price, it's pretty awesome. So all in, would I recommend this phone? For $299, I honestly would probably get a used device or wait for a Motorola sale. I personally prefer the Moto G Stylus 5G, the 2024 version. It is more expensive right now, but Motorola is always having sales, and if you're in the US, you can get it for even cheaper. But if you need a phone today, and this is $299 and the Moto G Stylus is $400, then I would definitely pick this phone over that one. All in, I really like it, and I hope that NUU keeps putting out phones, and I hope they get more and more competitive so we can have more fun in the US market. Anyways, I'm glad you guys stopped in. Sorry it took me so long to get a review. I have to buy these out of pocket, so hopefully I'll get another one out soon. I got a couple other phones, so we will see. All right, thanks. Bye.